It was the kind of neighborhood where people waved at each other while watering their lawns, where kids rode their bikes until the streetlights flickered on, and where the biggest drama was whether old Mr. Thompson would actually return the lawnmower he borrowed 2 summers ago. I had lived here for years without any trouble, until one morning, trouble found me. I remember stepping out of my house, coffee in one hand, keys in the other, ready to head to work. The air was crisp. The sky was a perfect shade of blue, and the world seemed normal until I saw it. A bright orange notice slapped right onto my windshield. I frowned, walking closer. HOA violation? I had never seen one of these before. My heart sank as I read the fine print. According to this notice, my car was not in compliance with community guidelines and needed to be removed immediately, or I'd be fined. I blinked. Community guidelines? What guidelines? I had parked in my own driveway, just like I had every day for years. There were no signs, no emails, no previous warnings. This made 0 sense. I glanced around, half expecting someone to be watching, smirking, from behind a curtain, but everything was still. Too still. With growing frustration, I peeled the notice off, flipping it over in my hands. There was a number at the bottom, listed under HOA Compliance Division. But here's the thing. I had never heard of a compliance division in our HOA before. Something about this felt off. I had no idea that this little piece of paper was about to pull me into a storm of lies, power plays, and one of the biggest HOA scams my neighborhood had ever seen. Hey, real quick. If you're enjoying the video so far, make sure to hit that like button, share it with friends, and subscribe for more awesome content. And while you're at it, drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. All right, let's keep going. I stood there, gripping the violation notice, my coffee now forgotten and cooling in my other hand. What the hell was this? My car had been parked in the same spot for years without a single issue. Why now? And more importantly, who decided this was a problem? Still frowning, I pulled out my phone and dialed the number at the bottom of the notice. After a few rings, a sharp voice answered. Homeowners Association Compliance Division. How may I assist you? I cleared my throat. Yeah, I just got a violation notice on my car. I think there's a mistake. What's the address? I gave it to them, and there was a brief pause before the voice returned, colder this time. Sir, your vehicle is in direct violation of HOA Regulation 14B. Non-approved vehicles are not permitted to be parked in visible residential driveways for extended periods. I blinked. Non-approved? What does that even mean? This is my car. I live here. The rules are very clear, the voice replied, almost robotic. If the vehicle is not removed within 48 hours, you will be fined. Continued non-compliance may result in further enforcement. The call ended. Just like that. I pulled the phone away from my ear, my pulse quickening. Something was definitely off. Later that evening I decided to ask around. Maybe this was just some new policy I had missed. Maybe I wasn't the only one affected. That's when I met Mrs. Delgado. She was sitting on her porch, sipping tea, watching the street like she always did. When I told her about the notice, her face darkened. She leaned in and lowered her voice. They got you too, huh? She muttered. I frowned. What do you mean? She sighed, setting down her cup. They've been doing this for months. Picking. Random houses. First it's the cars. Then it's the mailboxes. Then it's the fences. They make up new rules as they go. My stomach tightened. And people just let them? Some fight back, she said. But those who do? They find themselves with bigger problems. A chill ran down my spine. I glanced down the street at the quiet houses, at the dark windows where curtains seemed to move just as I looked. What the hell was going on here? That night, I sat at my desk, the violation notice crumpled beside my laptop. My gut told me something was wrong, and if there was one thing I had learned in life, it was this: trust your gut. I opened my HOA's official website, scrolling through the regulations. There was no Regulation 14B, no mention of non-approved vehicles, nothing. I dug deeper. The HOA board members' names were listed, but I didn't recognize the ones on my notice. In fact, when I compared the signatures, they didn't match the ones on the official documents. Were these even real officers? My frustration turned to suspicion. If they weren't legitimate, who were they? And what did they want? I decided to take a walk. Maybe some fresh air would help clear my head. But as I stepped outside, I saw something that made my stomach drop. A black SUV was slowly cruising down my street, headlights dimmed. I watched as it paused in front of my driveway, right where my car was parked. Then, just as quickly, it rolled on. I wasn't imagining this. Someone was watching. I needed more information. The next morning, I knocked on the door of Mr. Jensen, a longtime resident who had lived in the neighborhood for decades. If anyone knew what was going on, it was him. He cracked the door open, eyes flicking left and right before settling on me. "You shouldn't be asking questions," he said quietly. I hesitated. "Mr. Jensen, who are these HOA officers? They don't match the board members on the official site. None of these rules exist. What's going on?" He sighed, glancing over his shoulder. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he said, "They're not real HOA officers." The words hit me like a brick. "They make up their own rules, fine whoever they want, and scare off anyone who pushes back," he continued. "Some of us have tried to fight it, but it doesn't end well." My throat tightened. "What do you mean?" "Let's just say, the last guy who went to the city about it?" He exhaled slowly. He moved out. Fast. I felt a chill run down my spine. This wasn't just about my car. This was something bigger. And now, I was in the middle of it. The next morning I woke up to another bright orange notice, this time taped to my front door. Final warning. Non-compliant vehicle must be removed immediately. Failure to comply will result in towing and additional fines. I clenched my jaw. This was getting ridiculous. They couldn't just make up rules and expect me to follow them. Determined, I called the number on the notice again. This time a different voice answered, deeper, more authoritative. "You've been warned," the man said flatly. "This is your last chance to comply before further enforcement." I gritted my teeth. "You don't even have legal authority to fine me, let alone tow my car." There was a pause. Then the man chuckled. "You sure about that?" The line went dead. A bad feeling settled in my gut. I stepped outside just in time to see a tow truck backing into my driveway. Adrenaline surged through me. They were actually trying to take my car. I rushed forward, waving my arms. "Hey, you can't do this!" The driver barely glanced at me as he hooked my front wheels onto the lift. Standing nearby, two men in cheap polos with fake-looking badges smirked at me, the so-called HOA officers. I planted myself in front of the truck. "This is illegal." I checked the HOA bylaws. Nowhere does it say you can tow a resident's car. One of the officers, a burly man with a shaved head, stepped in close, too close. "Move." I didn't budge. He tilted his head. "You think you're smart, huh? You think you're gonna fight this?" His voice was calm, but there was an edge beneath it. A threat. My pulse pounded, but I refused to show fear. "I know. My rights. And I know you're full of it." I could feel eyes watching. Neighbors peeked through blinds and cracked open doors. They saw what was happening, but no one was stepping in. That's when I did something I knew would change everything. I pulled out my phone and started recording. The moment the camera was on them, their cocky expressions shifted. I turned to the tow truck driver. "You take this car and you're an accomplice to a crime. I'll send this footage straight to the city, to the real HOA board, and to the police." The driver hesitated, glancing at the officers. One of them muttered a curse under his breath. "Fine." A moment later, the truck's lift lowered my car back onto the ground. But as the truck pulled away and the fake officers stormed off, I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't over. I sat at my desk, fingers drumming against the wood, heart still, racing from the standoff with the fake HOA officers. They had backed off for now, but I knew they'd be back, and next time they'd be smarter. If I wanted to win, I needed more than gut feelings and phone recordings. I needed the law on my side. I pulled up my laptop and started digging through county records, HOA bylaws, and city regulations. If these guys were operating legally, there had to be some kind of paper trail, but there wasn't. No contracts, no legal filings, no documentation giving them the power to fine residents, let alone tow vehicles. Nothing. My stomach tightened. They weren't just bending the rules. They didn't have the authority to enforce anything. Still, I needed confirmation. So, the next morning, I set up a meeting with a real estate attorney, Mr. Lawson. He was an older guy, the kind who had seen every HOA trick in the book. I handed him the notices I had received, along with screenshots of the so-called HOA compliance division website. He scanned the papers, then chuckled. "Yeah, this is garbage." I blinked. "Excuse me?" He smirked, tossing the notice onto his desk. "They're running a scam. These guys aren't affiliated with your actual HOA, and even if they were, they don't have the authority to fine you or tow your car. Only the city does, and even then only under specific circumstances." I exhaled, my suspicion finally confirmed. "They're banking on intimidation," Lawson continued. "They pressure people into paying fake fines or complying with made-up rules. And since most homeowners don't know the law, they just go along with it." I felt a mix of relief and anger boiling inside me. How many people had they already scammed? How much money had they made off of fear? I wasn't just going to stop them from taking my car. I was going to expose them. I spent the next 24 hours gathering evidence. Screenshots of fake policies, video recordings, testimonies from neighbors who had also been targeted. I even requested official records from the city, proving that these officers had zero legal authority. By the time I was done, I had enough information to not only fight back, but to take them down. And the next time they showed up at my door, I was going to be ready. I wasn't going to wait for them to come back. This time, I was taking the fight to them. I had spent the past 2 days collecting every shred of evidence, fake violation notices, screenshots, legal documents proving they had no real authority, and statements from other neighbors who had been targeted. Now it was time to expose them. The opportunity presented itself when I found out there was a monthly HOA meeting happening that evening. Perfect. I arrived early, walking into the community hall with a folder tucked under my arm. The room was filled with residents, most of them older, some whispering among themselves. And right at the front, sitting behind a cheap plastic table, were the so-called HOA officers, the same ones who had tried to tow my car. They sat there smug as ever, probably expecting to breeze through another meeting, throwing around fake authority. Not this time. When the floor opened for community concerns, I stood up. Loud, clear, unshaken. "I have a question," I said, holding up one of their violation notices. "Who exactly gave you the legal authority to fine people and tow cars?" The room went quiet. One of the officers, shaved head guy, cleared his throat. "The HOA regulations clearly state—" "Which regulations?" I cut in, stepping forward. "Because I checked. And there's no Regulation 14B, there's no Compliance Division, and there's no record of you having any power over this community." Murmurs rippled through the room. Neighbors turned to one another, confusion and curiosity spreading like wildfire. Another officer, a wiry guy with glasses, scoffed. "Sir, you're mistaken." "No, I'm not." I pulled out my phone and projected my findings onto the meeting screen. City records proving they weren't legally recognized. Screenshots showing mismatched signatures on their notices. Legal documents stating that only the city could issue fines and enforce vehicle removals. I turned back to them, arms crossed. "So tell me, if you're not legally part of the HOA, who exactly are you?" Silence. Shaved head guy shifted in his seat. The smugness was gone. Instead, there was something else. Panic. We're just enforcing community standards," he stammered. "Community standards?" I laughed, shaking my head. Or was this a scam to intimidate homeowners into paying fake fines? The tension in the room snapped. Neighbors began shouting questions, demanding answers. Some pulled out their phones, recording everything. The HOA officers tried to control the situation, but it was too late. They had been exposed, and the whole neighborhood had seen it happen. The room had erupted into chaos. Neighbors were standing, shouting, demanding answers. Some had their phones out, recording every second. The fake HOA officers, once so smug and intimidating, were now squirming in their seats. But I wasn't done. I pulled out one final piece of evidence, a formal complaint I had already drafted. "This," I said, holding up the document, "is being sent to the city's housing authority and the police. You've been issuing fake fines, illegally threatening homeowners, and attempting to tow vehicles without proper authority. That's fraud. And guess what? That's a crime." The room erupted again, this time with outrage. I could see it in the officers' eyes. They knew they were finished. Shaved head guy stood up, his face pale. "This is a misunderstanding," he said quickly, hands raised like he was trying to calm a riot. But it was too late. A voice from the back of the room called out, "You scammed us for months!" Another neighbor yelled, "I paid you over $500 in fines. I want my money back." The HOA officers tried to push through the crowd, but the room had closed in around them. They weren't walking away from this. Within a week, legal action was in motion. The real HOA board, who had been just as blindsided as the rest of us, issued a public statement distancing themselves from the fake officers. City officials got involved. Complaints poured in, and then came the real karma. Each of the fake officers was slapped with massive fines for fraudulent activity. Some homeowners even filed lawsuits to recover the money they had paid in fake penalties. The scam fell apart in real time, and just like that, they were gone. A few weeks later, I pulled into my driveway, parked my car, and sat for a moment, just taking it all in. No more threats. No more notices taped to my door. Just silence. Just normal. Mrs. Delgado waved at me from her porch. "Glad that's over," she called out with a grin. I laughed. Me too. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like someone was watching me. Didn't feel like I had to check over my shoulder every time I walked outside. The fake HOA had tried to intimidate us, to scare us into compliance. But in the end, they learned the hard way. When you know your rights, no scam can hold power over you. A few weeks had passed, and the neighborhood felt different, lighter, freer, like a storm had finally passed, and we could all step outside without worrying about ridiculous fines or threats. I won't lie. Taking down those fake HOA officers had been stressful as hell. But as I sat on my porch sipping my coffee, watching cars park wherever they damn well pleased, I knew it had been worth it. I had learned something valuable. Bullies thrive on silence. They count on people being too scared, too unsure, or too tired to fight back. But the moment you challenge them with knowledge and proof, their power crumbles. Mrs. Delgado strolled by with her dog and smirked at me. "You see the news?" I raised an eyebrow. "What news?" She chuckled and handed me her phone. There it was, a headline that nearly made me spit out my coffee. "Former HOA officers, now under investigation for fraud. One found running fake parking ticket scam in another neighborhood." I shook my head, laughing. They never learn. Apparently, after getting run out of our community, one of them had tried the same scheme elsewhere, but got caught almost immediately. This time, the cops weren't just handing out fines. They were handing out handcuffs. "Poetic justice," I muttered, handing her phone back. She grinned. "I knew you'd enjoy that." As she walked away, I leaned back in my chair, feeling that rare, perfect kind of peace, the kind you get when you stand your ground and win. The lesson was simple. Know your rights, speak up, and never ever let some wannabe dictator tell you where to park your own damn car. And if they try, well, I've got some legal documents they might want to read. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, share it with friends, and subscribe for more awesome content. Don't forget to tap the bell icon to stay updated. And let me know in the comments, where are you watching from? Your support means the world.